Hey, what's up? I'm Jason Howell, and I'm here with the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1. There is no doubt that they've been successful with the Note series. They're obviously looking to move that into the tablet spectrum. Let's see if they were successful in that. Let's take a look at the specs. This has a 1.4 gigahertz quad-core Exynos processor loaded with 2 gigs of RAM. It has a 10.1-inch screen at 1280 by 800 resolution. It's Wi-Fi only in the US. There are also models that support HSPA Plus overseas. Micro SD card slot, which stores up to 64 gigs of storage. There's an IR blaster at the very top, so you can use it as a universal remote. Underneath, you'll find the signature S Pen, as Samsung likes to call it, and it's running Android 4.0 Ice Cream Sandwich. Samsung says Jelly Bean will be arriving very soon. All right, now let's take a look at the design of the device. Obviously, Samsung is going for the no confusion with an iPad type approach. As you can see here, there are 2 speakers front-facing at the top. These speakers are very loud because they're facing out at all times, and you kind of get that stereo separation, which was very nice. The color palette resembles a lot of what you'll see on the Samsung Galaxy S3 line, another very popular series for Samsung. But overall, anything potentially positive is kind of negated by an overly plastic feel and hollowness. I mean, things bend in the center. When you pick it up, you can hear it creak underneath your fingers, and even when you're picking it up with fragile hands, and the plastic overall just feels very cheap. The S Pen does dock in the bottom, however, and I'd say for tablets that require or at least have an accessory of a stylus, it's nice to be able to dock that in the tablet. It feels more like a unified product with the tablet. Now taking a look at the display, the resolution 1280 by 800. Most tablets that are coming out right now in the same price range as this tablet are sporting much higher resolutions. Supposedly the lower res is a byproduct of limitations of the Wacom digitizer that's used to support the included S Pen. But overall, that higher definition standard is being set, and on this one it really stands out. The display just does not look good. Now the cameras, the 1.9 megapixel front-facing camera as well as the 5 megapixel rear-facing camera just produce photos that look hazy, cloudy, little to no sharpness, and that's even in great light. And actually the video didn't look much better. So overall, I'd say the camera hardware on this tablet is pretty bad. Okay, so as taking a look at the performance of the tablet, I was actually pretty impressed with that for the most part. When it comes to things like browsing the web, everything moved very smoothly. Loading up a page that had a lot on it, there wasn't a whole lot of skipping and catching up with my movements. It was actually very pleasant to browse on this tablet. Gaming, I went to my go-to game, which is Dead Trigger, of course, and that performed beautifully on here and played without a hiccup. Where it kind of broke down a little bit is actually Samsung's TouchWiz interface, their overlay that they put on most of their devices. It's on here in full force as you're skipping around and kind of clutters up the experience. I did notice that once you kind of remove some of their cluttered widgets and everything on these main screens, it tends to speed things up a little bit, but that doesn't help you kind of in the deep-seated roots of what TouchWiz is doing throughout this tablet. So keep that in mind. As far as battery performance is concerned, 7,000 milliamp hour battery under here, and the battery is actually very bulky and totally does a great job powering this thing. I hardly had to really think about it. I would plug it in, but there would be times where I would forget to plug it in and it would retain in its standby mode very, very well. All right, now as far as the software is concerned, Samsung's TouchWiz, as I said, in full effect here. Things look very different than they do on a vanilla ice cream sandwich approach. And some of those changes, TouchWiz definitely has its fans, and for new users of Android in particular, might find a lot of benefit out of some of the things that TouchWiz does. But overall, I just found it to kind of slow things down. But there are some kind of cool things to take a look at. Okay, first of all, down here at the bottom is a little arrow, which gives you some mini apps that may or may not be useful to you. I don't believe that there's any way to really program anything down here. They're kind of preset to what Samsung gives you, and a lot of them have to do with S Pen apps like S Planner or S Note. Also, if you noticed, when I took the S Pen out, there's a little pop-up on the side that happens right there. It detects that it's left and it gives you these options for your S Pen. The problem is these are also not adjustable, so you're locked in with these what is it, 6 options that you have here, including a game called Crayon Physics, which you'll probably play once and then never play again. You can never remove that from the dock there. As you can see here, S Note, which allows you to do, all the fun pen writing style things and take quick notes. It also floats over the top, which is something that the Samsung TouchWiz UI allows you to do, simulating kind of a multitasking experience. Okay, now speaking of multitasking, let's take a look at how TouchWiz manages that. I'll go into the browser and up here hit this multi-screen button and pull up S Note. It's going to give me my 2 panes on the right side, the S Note where I can jot down my notes. On the left side it'll give me my browser and I can go in here and do my browsing and everything. But what you start to notice as you use it more and more is that it's not true multitasking. I can be in this window, but if I come over here and start writing, it doesn't catch up with me until later, so it's kind of shifting focus, and that little lag makes things a little bit less usable and less fluid. So it's kind of a little bit of a bummer. It's kind of fake multitasking, but overall, kind of the intended effect is there. Another thing that Samsung has in here is their own style of keyboard, which you can kind of split the keyboard or have it floating or do a full QWERTY keyboard. And you can pinch your fingers to switch between them, which is very easy to do when you're typing. Not to mention the predictive text on this keyboard is horrible and super aggressive. So if you're using this keyboard, it's telling you that you're typing something that you're not, and you look back at what you typed and it's complete gobbledygook. So I had to put on my own keyboard. I ended up putting SwiftKey 3 on here. I just couldn't take it anymore. It was really irritating. And finally, another thing that really irritated me about this experience is the tooltips. I feel like a tooltip was popping up for me every 3 seconds based on everything that I was doing with the tablet. And a week later, those tooltips were still appearing. Even if I checkmarked them that I didn't want to see them again, they'd come back. So I don't know if I was doing something wrong repeatedly every single time, or if it's just super aggressive, but it was really annoying. Now, the S Pen that I have here is definitely a differentiator for this tablet. It's what Samsung is kind of banking on, quite frankly, around the Note series. It's a pressure-sensitive pen, and Samsung touts around 1,000 levels of sensitivity. I don't know if I necessarily would say that you notice 1,000 levels of sensitivity. If I go as light as I can, that isn't an incredibly thin line compared to as hard as I can, being a little bit thicker. It's definitely there, but sometimes you want even finer of a line or even thicker of a line, and you're just kind of not getting it. So it's hard to understand where the 1,000 levels are. The shape of the pen actually prevents it from rolling away, but overall the pen is just very cheap feeling. It has this multi-purpose button on the side, but it's really limited to a couple of uses, and you can't program the button. But there are no batteries, so that's a plus. And finally, as we noted earlier, it does dock into the bottom of the tablet, which is a really good design choice. All right, so let's take a look at the pros of the Galaxy Note 10.1 tablet. The S Pen is definitely a differentiator, it's very unique. The performance of the tablet as a whole was pretty impressive for most tasks, and the battery is ample. Now the cons. The design, though well thought out in some areas like the speaker placement, completely ignores pitfalls in others. The display resolution just doesn't compare at all with similar sized and priced tablets. The camera produces fuzzy, grainy, hazy pictures and videos. And finally, TouchWiz is impossible to ignore, and you can't help but feeling that it's kind of slowing the whole process down. Overall, whether you should buy this tablet really depends on how badly you need this stylus. Sorry, Samsung, I know you're calling it an S Pen, but it's a stylus. If that's something that you absolutely need in your tablet, this might be one of the only players in town, so you might have to go with it. Otherwise, I would absolutely recommend that you not buy the Galaxy Note 10.1. There are other tablets that are similarly priced that give you a lot more bang for your buck and just are a lot more fun to use than the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1 tablet. You can catch my reviews on All About Android at twit.tv/AAA. And thank you so much for checking out my review of the Samsung Galaxy Note 10.1.